Wife cheated, now conflicted. My wife and I met at work in her small hometown where all her family lives. When we first started dating, I told her I wasn't staying in that town and she was good with leaving. Shortly after we started dating, she moved in with me and started her degree while still working her full-time job. To support her, I did a lot of the administrative stuff, grocery shopping, etc., so she could focus on school. Our relationship went on the back burner. About 4 years into our relationship, I realized it was time to leave that town for my own emotional well-being. She agreed to make the move with me, though would later characterize it as me twisting her arm into it. So we moved and she finished her degree about a year later. While in our new state, she would periodically travel back home to visit family for a few weeks. When she returned from one of these trips, she confessed to me that she had gotten drunk with an old sex buddy of hers and he performed oral on her. She seemed genuinely remorseful when she told me about it. We set boundaries, discussed what factors were at play, and worked through it. A year later, after having been together for 6.5 years, we got married. 5 months later, she had her IUD removed as we made plans to have a child. Later that month, on her second trip back home after our wedding, she comes home and confesses she cheated again. This time it was with her high school boyfriend that she hadn't seen or talked to in over a decade. Alcohol wasn't a factor, they spent a lot of time together, she had unresolved feelings that made it an emotional affair, but it was also physical because they had sex. She claimed she stopped it and told him it was a mistake, but continued to spend a lot of time with him and they continued talking even after she came home and told me what happened. During that trip, she had asked me if moving back to her hometown was a hard no for me and I said it was. She was struggling with being away from family and she said she felt stuck. During her confession, she said this was a factor in her emotional state at the time. She also said it felt good to be desired, as I don't show her desire enough. She can't explain why she made the decision to act on her emotions, crossing pretty much all the boundaries we set after the first time. I'm absolutely gutted. I've never felt pain like this before. I love this woman so much. Despite desperately wanting for years to leave her hometown and never go back, I was genuinely trying to find a way to be on board with going back because it was important to her. I shared with her how I felt and what I thought would be necessary for us to work through this. Of course, one of the conditions was to completely cut the AP out of her life, but I needed her to be certain she could resolve and get over any feelings she may have for him. She's working through that while I try to see a way forward. I'm so conflicted because of the sheer betrayal. She knew she was doing wrong the whole time but continued. She fostered and encouraged it. Pursued it. She said she doesn't regret the sex, but does regret that it happened while she was married. She hasn't really shown remorse. It's so hard to believe anything or see a path forward, but I so desperately want to find a way to move through this. I've envisioned building a life with her for years and have been otherwise very happy with her. I'm just so conflicted. I'm not sure if I can ever trust her again because this was deliberate. ETA, I recognize the objective response is obviously divorce. That's why I'm conflicted. She had brought up how much she misses her family and her desire to go home before the cheating. I don't think her motivation is to be there for more cheating, as she could easily do that where we live now. But I did tell her I won't move back until I know whether we can reconcile. If we can and we move back, a condition is that she has no contact of any form with AP. If there's incidental contact, I have to know immediately. Obviously unenforceable, though. She claims she had emotional breakdowns before flying back home, and that she's broken down and cried since being home, but not around me. I don't really believe that, because I don't understand how anyone could possibly move through what I would expect to be immense guilt that quickly or even hide it. It's what bothers me the most and is the source of most of my doubt that we can reconcile. Story 2. My girlfriend of 3 years cheated on me at a summer research program, lied about it, and my brother is married to her sister. Me, 21M, and my now ex-girlfriend, 22F, met just after high school and had one of the most amazing and insane relationship stories ever, so I felt the need to share. We went to separate colleges about 3 hours apart, but her De Ella College De Ella is in my hometown De Ella, so I would come home often to be with her. About 3 months after we had started dating, my brother began dating her sister from her. Everything was going well and we had a good relationship for about 3 years. Then, my brother and her sister decided to get married and go to grad school together. Immediately after the wedding, things started to change in my relationship. My ex stopped doing the things she liked, became depressed, started going to bed at 9 p.m., started taking me for granted, started responding to texts 6 hours later, etc. I became very depressed as she would continually be so tired she couldn't stay up after 9 p.m. with me or ask me to do anything besides lay down and watch Netflix, but then she'd go out with her friends to Ella and do things. When I confronted her about this, she'd say sorry, I just get anxious, but then never do anything about her anxiety about her or try to change anything. Over the summer I went to do field research in the Upper Peninsula because my ex had decided to go out to Oregon to do chemistry research for 10 weeks. We were in the middle of figuring out where to live next and what we wanted to do after undergrad, so our conversations were a little tense, but no yelling or severe fighting or anything crazy or unhealthy. Slowly over the summer, she stopped calling me at all and rarely texted. My program ended, and in the last week of her program we were on the phone talking about where we were going to live next. Then, I casually mentioned that I had had a dream that she was with someone else the night before. She got dead quiet, and I asked if everything was okay and she said yeah and hung up. She did not talk to me the rest of the week as she said she was going to be busy with writing her paper from her. Since she was stressed about the paper, I decided to drive 2 hours to Chicago to pick her up at the airport and bought her a dozen roses. Then, right before her flight to Ella was about to leave, she found out I was picking her up, called me up, and broke up with me over the phone, after 3 years. She said I'm just bad at being in a relationship and I just can't right now and I've got to figure things out on my own. When she got back from her I waited for her to reach out to me to talk in person. A whole week went by, and so I finally decided to ask to talk. She said, I'm really busy with getting ready for school, but I have 15 minutes this Thursday at 5:30. So I went and talked, and she said similar things as on the phone, but she took no responsibility and couldn't tell me what I did wrong or anything. I was devastated, and sunk into a deep depression and had obsessive thoughts and knew that I wasn't getting the whole truth. So, I'm looking on Spotify and she had deleted every playlist she's made and unfollowed all her friends of her including me and only followed this one dude from her research program in Oregon. I click on this dude's profile of Ella and his pic of Ella is a picture of him in her shirt of Ella and he's got a playlist named after her with a bunch of love songs. So I go to confront her. I don't mention the playlist, but I ask if anything happened with this dude specifically. She denies it. So, I give up and start to see other people. A week later, I find out from my brother and his wife that she's dating the dude from Oregon long distance and that she cheated on me. We're all in shock that she would do this to me. I went to therapy and got all my depression and obsessive thoughts sorted out. I graduated from college in 7 weeks, I met a bunch of new friends and I started dating a lovely girl and everything is looking up. So, if you're feeling hurt about being cheated on, it does get better, and at least your brother isn't married to your cheater's sister.